March 2026. The bombs are still falling. Cities are burning. Oil has hit $100 a barrel. And then, out of nowhere, Iran picks up the phone. A deal, a real deal, to stop this war. But here's what nobody is telling you. There is one secret condition inside Iran's offer, that if America accepts it, would completely change the balance of power in the Middle East forever. What is that condition? I'll tell you at the end of this video. Stay with me. To understand Iran's deal offer, you first need to understand how we got here, because this war didn't start overnight. It was years in the making. The confrontation came after years of rising tension over Iran's nuclear program, its ballistic missiles, and its military reach across the Middle East. Attempts to renegotiate a nuclear deal in 2025 and 2026 were unsuccessful. Iran's posture was already weakened after years of sanctions, destabilizing protests, and damage inflicted during a 12-day war with Israel in June 2025. Iran was already on the ropes, and both Washington and Tel Aviv knew it. Given Iran's weakened position, the United States and Israel calculated that they had greater opportunity to advance their objectives through military means than by diplomatic means. That's the cold, brutal logic of geopolitics. When you sense weakness, you strike. On February 28, 2026, U.S. and Israeli forces launched nearly 900 strikes in 12 hours, targeting Iranian missiles, air defenses, military infrastructure, and leadership. The initial wave of strikes killed Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and dozens of other officials. 900 strikes in 12 hours. The Supreme Leader of Iran, gone. Dozens of top military commanders, gone. Iran's entire leadership structure, decapitated overnight. Crude oil hit $100 a barrel as Iran vowed to keep fighting after 6,000 U.S. airstrikes. 6,000 airstrikes. And Iran is still fighting. That tells you everything you need to know about what America is dealing with. Now, even in the middle of this war, Iran came to the table. Let's talk about what they actually offered. Before the bombs fell, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi had been signaling something remarkable. Araghchi said Iran is prepared for peace, and that a diplomatic solution was at our reach and could easily be achieved. He stressed that Iran's nuclear program has no military solution and called the massive U.S. military buildup in the Middle East unnecessary and unhelpful. Prepared for peace. That's a direct quote from Iran's top diplomat. But here's where it gets interesting. Because Iran and America weren't just disagreeing about missiles. They were disagreeing about the very definition of a deal. U.S. and European officials say Washington presented Iran with three core demands: a permanent end to all uranium enrichment, strict limits on Iran's ballistic missile program, and a complete halt to support for regional proxy groups such as Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. Three demands. All three of them are essentially asking Iran to give up everything that makes it a regional power. Uranium enrichment, gone. Missiles, limited. Proxies, abandoned. From Iran's perspective, this wasn't a deal. This was surrender. Iran said it was ready to place rigorous monitoring and limits on its enrichment operations, but not give up the program entirely. Araghchi said the U.S. side had not actually asked for zero enrichment, which appeared to contradict the Trump administration's public stance. So here's what's fascinating. In public, Trump was demanding Iran dismantle everything. But in private negotiations, the U.S. side was already quietly backing down. This gap between public posturing and private deal-making, that's where wars end, or where they spiral out of control. Before the bombs fell, there was a real diplomatic process unfolding. Multiple rounds of talks in multiple cities. On February 6, 2026, the United States and Iran held indirect talks in Muscat, Oman, mediated by Omani Foreign Minister Badr bin Hamad al-Busaidi. Iran emphasized that progress depended on consultations back in capitals. A second round of nuclear talks was scheduled in Geneva, indirect talks. Notice that word, indirect. America and Iran were not even sitting in the same room. They were passing messages through Oman like two people who refused to make eye contact. Another round of indirect talks ended with a mediator claiming significant progress, but still no clear evidence that either side was willing to concede enough to avoid war. Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi said further technical talks would be held in Vienna, and that progress had been good. Significant progress. Good progress. Meanwhile, two American aircraft carriers were sailing toward Iran. The USS Abraham Lincoln and the USS Gerald R. Ford, the largest aircraft carrier ever built, positioned and ready. Iran also offered to build at least 19 additional nuclear reactors, suggesting that contracts for these projects could help revive the U.S. nuclear industry as part of a peace proposal. However, Iran's supreme leader maintained tough rhetoric, casting doubt on any agreement. 19 nuclear reactors. Iran was offering America a business deal, contracts, jobs, economic revival. It was a creative offer, and it went nowhere because the hardliners on both sides wouldn't allow it. Here's where it gets complicated. Because Trump himself could not decide what he wanted. From the moment Operation Epic Fury was launched, Trump's messaging oscillated between deal-making and the destruction of Iran. Early on, he called on members of Iran's IRGC to lay down their arms and surrender in exchange for immunity. Later, he asked Iranian diplomats to switch sides. Lay down your arms. Switch sides. This isn't the language of a peace deal. This is the language of someone who wants the other government to collapse. Following the February 28th strikes, Trump said, "To the great people of Iran, I say that the hour of freedom is at hand. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take." That one statement destroyed any remaining chance of a negotiated peace. You cannot tell a nation's people to overthrow their government and then claim you want to negotiate with that same government. It's contradictory. And Iran noticed. On March 6th, Trump posted on Truth Social, demanding surrender. There will be no deal. Iranian diplomats publicly rebuffed Trump's offers, insisting they remained committed to their role as representatives of the Islamic Republic. There will be no deal. 3 words. And with those 3 words, weeks of quiet diplomacy collapsed. About 27% of Americans were supportive of the U.S. operation, while 43% were opposed and 29% were uncertain. An NBC poll found 52% of registered voters believed the U.S. should not have taken military action, while 41% supported it. Most Americans reported they believe that Trump still has not explained the goals behind attacking Iran. More Americans oppose this war than support it, and most can't even explain what America is fighting for. That's a dangerous place for any democracy to be in during a military conflict. Let's talk about what happens when diplomacy fails, because right now the world is paying the price. The conflict had immediate impacts on global travel and trade. Flights in and out of the Middle East came to a near-complete stop. When Dubai International Airport, one of the world's busiest, was damaged by drone strikes, it temporarily halted all flights. Dubai Airport, gone. The hub that connects Asia to Europe to America, dark. And shipping routes are not any better. Shipping lines rerouted to avoid the Strait of Hormuz, even before Iran threatened to fire on ships passing through the strait, as well as the Red Sea, where the Iran-allied Houthi movement had previously attacked ships. The Strait of Hormuz carries roughly 20% of the world's oil supply. When that choke point closes, even partially, the entire global economy feels it, and you feel it at the gas pump, at the grocery store, in your electricity bill. Inflation in Iran has shot beyond 60%. Food inflation was far the strongest driver, with cooking oil up 207%, red meat up 117%, eggs and dairy up 108%, and bread up 142%. These are Iranian families who cannot afford bread, a 142% increase in bread prices. This is what war does to ordinary people who never voted for any of this. Iran vowed to keep fighting after 6,000 U.S. airstrikes, and oil hit $100 per barrel, with stocks sinking worldwide and no clear end in sight. No clear end in sight. That's not me being dramatic. That is the Associated Press reporting on March 12, 2026, yesterday. So, remember that question from the very beginning? The one secret condition inside Iran's deal offer that would change the Middle East forever? Here it is. Iran offered to build 19 nuclear reactors, jointly with America. Think about that. Iran wasn't just offering to stop enriching uranium. They were offering to make America their partner in nuclear energy, to give American companies billions of dollars in contracts, to turn an enemy into a business partner. That offer is now dead, buried under 6,000 American airstrikes. And the world is left asking the same question it always asks after wars begin. Was there a moment we could have chosen differently? The answer, this time, is yes, and we know exactly when that moment was. If this opened your eyes, share this video. Someone needs to see it. And tell me in the comments, do you think a deal is still possible, or has this war gone too far to stop? See you in the next one.